Many of our Asian neighbors have done it and have done it well. A reliable mass transit system, modern infrastructure, and even strict car ownership regulations to address the demands of living in growing urban centers. So the question now, for most of us who have to live with the daily perils of traffic congestion, why can't Filipinos do it? I'm Tony Velasquez, and this is Gridlock, an ANC forum on the transportation crisis. Now, when you take EDSA, travel time varies. You have to account for the weather, incidents of road accidents, and yes, even mall sales. And to give us a sense of what motorists and commuters endure on a daily basis, our correspondent, Jackie Pascual, is taking on the challenge of traveling from the south of Metro Manila to our studios here in ABS-CBN. So, Jackie, it's raining. You're in one of the, we can say, choke points of traffic in Metro Manila. How much progress do you think you can make to be here in ABS-CBN within an hour's time?
Hi Tony, you're right. That's hard to answer, but it's really a rainy night here at Baclaran in Parañaque. And we are just a few meters away from the Baclaran Church, and there's light to moderate traffic right in front of the church along Ross Boulevard, at least for now. We'll be traveling straight to ABS-CBN Studios in Quezon City in a bit, and that's a 17-kilometer journey. Now, normally without traffic, that would take us just around 30 minutes or less. But the question now is, will we reach ABS-CBN before the forum ends? And we will find out later, and throughout the show, I'll be giving more updates of my journey from Baclaran to ABS-CBN in Quezon City. Tony, back to you.
And may the wings of Mercury be on your feet, Jackie. All right. On any given day, yes, even on Sundays, getting around Metro Manila isn't easy. It's not for the impatient and certainly not for the faint of heart. Here's why.
Mobility is a major problem in Metro Manila. Whether you take public transport or use your own car, the experience remains the same. Everybody is stuck in traffic.
Matagal, matraffic, mainit. Nung isang araw na nasiraan yung MRT, binaba kami lahat.
Pagka-jeep kasi, siyempre, nandyan yung maraming usok, nandyan yung kuminsan, traffic, ganon. Kapag ganon din, sana wala yung siksikan.
The poor transport system in the country is costing the economy billions of pesos every day, and it also has negative effects on the citizens' health and productivity.
Tanggal nga ako sa trabaho sa isang trabaho kasi lagi ako late, everyday late. Sa isang kadumaan, lahat, puro traffic. Galing pa akong Caloocan Nag-e-effects ako, nag-MRT. Minsan, sira yung MRT, kaya nagbabas ako.
With traffic reaching crisis proportions, how can government untangle this mess? Sheila Napalang, director of the National Center for Transportation Studies, says there are four main reasons for the massive gridlock. Roads. The country needs sturdy and properly maintained streets. Vehicles. There's just too many cars. People. Many Filipinos do not follow road signs. And institutions. Government needs to be more innovative in solving this crisis, and it needs to have political will as well.
Part of the problem is that people are so impatient and people don't follow rules. We don't follow loading and unloading. Passengers don't board where they're supposed to board. Drivers park where they're not supposed to park.
The ABS-CBN news team went around Metro Manila, and we saw how a small road repair project can cause headaches for drivers, how a minor accident can trigger congestion, and signs have become mere suggestions. Napalang asserts improving the public mass transport system should be a priority of the government. The country may opt for either rail or a bus rapid transit. She adds the premium P2P bus system is a good first step, as it gives another option for commuters, and it also attracts private car owners to leave their cars at home.
We can no longer sustain having so many private vehicles on the road. We will burst at the seams. Even if we do make 3rd, 4th, 5th level EDSA.
Napalang says there are 4 E's to help solve this daily nightmare. Engineering, build more good roads. Enforcement, strictly enforce road rules. Education, teach traffic enforcers and the public as well. And empowerment, involve citizens in finding solutions. Napalang adds, the time to improve the transport crisis is now, and everyone, not just the government, has a role to play. Jackie Pascual, ABS-CBN News.
Thank you, Jackie. And now, we do know the problems. We'll try to discuss possible solutions. And to help us to look for those solutions, we're joined here in the studio by Transportation Undersecretary for Rail and Toll Roads, Noel Eli Quintanar. From the business sector, we're joined by Mr. Donald D., the Chair of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. John Forbes, a Senior Advisor of the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. And to also share with us their experience in dealing with traffic management, we're joined by Goddess Hope Oliveros Libiran. She's the spokesperson for the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, as well as the acting director of the MMDA Public Information Office, and with her, Attorney Eves Gonzalez, a former traffic director of the MMDA. And also with us in our audience is Paulo Monteiro from the Makati Business Club, some members of the media, and students and school officials from the Centro Escolar University. Thank you all for joining me tonight on our special forum. Well, we did start out by giving Jackie Pascual, our correspondent, a challenge, traveling from Baclaran to ABS-CBN. Hopefully, Jackie will be with us here in the studio, probably 10 pounds lighter from the ordeal. But let's start with Undersecretary Quintanar. Of course, the Duterte administration came in saying that they want emergency powers to solve the transportation problem. But right now, do we really need those emergency powers?
Well, thank you for the question, Tony. I guess last week we had a Senate hearing, and we discussed it extensively with the panel on public utilities. And I think the general finding, or at least what we presented to the Senate committee, was that there are certain things that we really have to synchronize and get in sync. For example, on traffic management, I think one of the things we cited then was the number coding. Number coding, depending on what municipality you're in, you have different policies. And in effect, because of this difference in policies among municipalities and cities, you don't get the net effect of what the number coding really wanted to do to begin with. That's one. Number two, in various sectors, in the rail sector, for example, procurement of parts provided by suppliers who are the only supplier in the world, you will have difficulty in stocking up parts and completing your supply chain. And in the rail sector, the reason why we have repeated breakdowns is because we really lack spare parts, capital spares in the rail system. So these are some of the things we address. I guess the second point is the emergency powers are seen within a very specific time frame of around 2 years. So it's not like we say we need emergency powers across the board for the rest of the 6 years or 10 years even. We're saying to get ahead of the curve, or at least to try to get on the curve, we do need to address certain things more strategically, and we have to ensure that we have the powers within government to be able to address some of these concerns. So it's still legislation being drafted, but I think we've been having the dialogue with the Senate committee on how to craft these emergency powers.
Does the business community have any apprehensions about these emergency powers?
Actually, as far as Philippine Chamber is concerned, we're very supportive. Of course, the position we took is that it must be time-bound, and that the powers would be used specifically for these traffic problems that we have.
And as for the American Chamber of Commerce?
So I don't think we've taken a position yet, but certainly from the point of view of foreign investors, the city has to have mobility. For example, there are about 800,000 employees in the booming BPO sector, and they're required to come to their offices. They can't work remotely. So maybe it's an advantage to work at night. Traffic is not so bad. But basically, investors look at the country because of the great opportunities that are offered here and an economy growing so fast with a lot of consumerism. But if you can't move about, if you can't get in and out of the airport easily, that's a negative. It can't remain a negative for a long time, or certainly can't worsen.
You know, during your time, Eves, you were already looking at ways of easing the traffic. Of course, you came up with a Navigator app as well. Many people, of course, resorted to that before they shifted over to other navigation apps like Waze. But does that actually tell you that from your time, the problem of traffic seems to have been somehow neglected and not given enough, attention by authorities?
I don't think that traffic has been neglected. I just think that there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of institutional issues that we haven't been able to resolve, and that's why I think the Emergency Powers Bill seeks to address these institutional issues. Because as long as these issues are there, we will not be able to really get ahead of the curve, as you mentioned. So I don't think it's been neglected. The people, the MMDA, LTFRB, DOTR, LTO, all the LGU traffic enforcers, you see them trying to solve the traffic. But I don't think it's within their powers at the moment to actually find the solution to traffic.
And like I said at the beginning, of course we all know what the problem is, and there seems to be a lot of time, maybe a disproportionate amount of time being spent to analyze the problem that has been repeatedly identified. But for the MMDA now, has the time for analysis stopped?
No. Still ongoing naman yung analysis, no? But I agree with Attorney Eves Gonzalez a while ago with what he said, na there are really certain issues that we need to address. And we are very supportive of the emergency powers nga, because we are hoping that it will give the government a faster time for it to add road networks. Kasi let me give you an example. In 2010, there were around 1.9 million vehicles registered in Metro Manila. And with the 636,000 square kilometers area of Metro Manila, ideally there should be like more than 8,200 kilometers of road network, but we only have 5,200 plus of road network. In 2015, the number of registered vehicles in Metro Manila ballooned to 2.5 million, but the road network remained the same.
So it's an infrastructure problem, basically.
One of those.
Yes, one of those.
Because if you're talking about institutional problems, I mean, building roads is somehow factored into the national budget every year. We always have some sort of infrastructure funding, no? At least for the DPWH. But why does it seem that we can't keep up with the increase in the number of vehicles vis-a-vis putting up the road infrastructure?
Well, I guess we have to understand that the Philippines has enjoyed almost a decade of continuous growth. We weathered the global financial crisis quite well. And I think in that decade of growth, the urban middle class has reached the tipping point wherein their per capita income allows them the ability to buy a car. And that's why we see phenomenal growth in car sales. I think 20% was the last number that I recall. And yet I think, admittedly, the roads are not growing at the same pace. And therefore, given the lack of alternative modes of transportation, people will take their cars. The middle class will take their cars onto the roads, and ultimately you end up in the situation where we're at, wherein there are just too many cars to fit the road. Now, again, I just want to pick up on one point. Is the question of urban transport all about roads and cars? I think not. I think what we really have to think about is urban transport is about mobility of people, where they come from and where they want to go. And I think that's essentially people want to go from their home to their place of work, from their home to their schools, maybe go around with friends every now and then. But this is how we have to look at it. It's mobility of people, and the way to move people around in bigger cities bigger than ours, is really that they build a network of intermodal transport, wherein people can choose. They can choose to take a train. They can choose to walk even. Walking should be an option, even though it's a little warm and it's rainy, but it should be a real option. And then we do take cars, public buses, and other modes of transport. Once this network comes into play, then I think the dependency of the urban population on cars will reduce, and only then we'll begin to enjoy a reduction in the congestion.
When it comes to government planning for long-term infrastructure projects like transportation, how much time do we actually give for a particular railway to be planned and then to be implemented and then finally be opened?
Yeah. Okay, I guess railways are not simple infrastructure. For one thing, you have to clear the right-of-way, you have to build the structure itself, you have to get the rails and electrical systems and safety systems in place. Then you have to actually test the trains themselves, right? So that probably would be anywhere between a 2 to 3 year process from the day you start construction. But then, before you start construction, you have a 1 year process of designing it. Because in the design, you address all the problems that you will encounter during operations for the next 30 to 50 years. So it is an involved process. I guess the good news is there are a number of projects already in the pipeline. And so what we have to do is build these projects in the pipeline out as fast as we can and begin to put the succeeding projects into that pipeline and just move them a little faster. And not only in Manila, but in other urban cities, urban areas of the country as well.
Well, normally when we have these railway projects done, and it's a process of bidding them out, or negotiated, if we can actually do it that way. But for the business sector, how much faster do you think the government can proceed with these railway projects, given that, you know, private sector investment is so critical to these types of projects?
To begin with, Tony, I don't know if we can even have private sector involved in the rail project. First of all, it's very expensive. Secondly, there's no ROI unless there's a government guarantee, performance guarantee. And on top of that,
so it's an unattractive field for businesses to get
for
into.
rail, it's not attractive unless you have a guarantee. And that to get that guarantee, that means government will guarantee usage, which is highly improbable. Financial guarantee, they won't do it at all. So really, rail has to be government financed.
And government funding, where do you get that?
Well, I just want to clarify a few points raised by Mr. Dian. I mean, I agree that rail on a back-to-back is each line financially viable. I'd agree that it's not the case, and let's not kid ourselves. It's not viable in New York, where they're much more wealthy than we are. It's not viable in Tokyo. It's not viable in Paris. It's not viable in Hong Kong and Singapore. So, having said that, government does have a role in financing rail. Why? Because the real benefit of rail is the ability to reduce congestion losses. Again, numbers that we've been discussing is on a daily basis, we lose about 2.4 billion pesos in our economy just because of congestion. So Jackie could have been here 30 minutes ago, but he's still somewhere out there.
Unless he's been shopping. I mean, it's
Okay.
Baclaran. Yeah.
Right. So again, so the real benefit of rail is in the economic benefit, the way we are able to reduce congestion and make Manila a productive city, and as well make Cebu a productive city, Davao and other cities as well. Now, having said that, I wouldn't go to the extent of saying that the private sector has no role in building rail, because the private sector is good at certain things, and one thing it's good at is building infrastructure on time. Having joined government over the past 45 days, I've seen that there are a number of projects wherein there are delays, and again, we can't blame any one person, but I think the institution itself of government really has challenges in implementing projects on time. That's the first thing. So building projects on time, I think the track record of the private sector building it on time compared to the government is really in favor of the private sector. Number two, quality of work. Again, you can see in in a private toll road and a public built road, the quality of the surface and everything is much better in a privately built toll road. Number three, operation and maintenance. I think this is really where the private sector excels, because they just don't walk into the facility and do whatever they want. They walk in and they say they're held to a contract which is probably 6 inches thick, defining every single performance indicator and penalties if they don't deliver. This, I think, the private sector does well. And when we do that, then we can avoid a situation where in the current lines run by government, 40% of the trains are not operating. They're in the depot. We're still paying the debt on it, but they're in the depot, not operating. Now, that to me is where government, as an institution, not only in the Philippines, it's not unique to the Philippines, has really failed in this respect, because it's not designed for that role. And that's where we say, that's where the private sector can really contribute.
You're making a big argument for more private sector participation in projects like rail, but Mr. D says it's not attractive enough.
So they have to finance it, and they have to give the guarantees, then it will happen.
So you have to finance it.
Which I said, I agree with Mr. D completely on that respect.
Sure. All right. Now, unfortunately, we're due for a pit stop. Pit stop to where? I don't know. But we'll still be joined by our guests when Gridlock returns. Don't go away. Welcome back. Well, there's plenty of blame to go around when we talk about what's wrong with the country's transportation sector. And for the Commission on Audit, there's a case to be made for the lack of a coherent traffic management plan from the Metro Manila Development Authority, despite being given funding of more than ₱1 billion.
Traffic has been a daily struggle for both commuters and motorists in Metro Manila for the past years. In a recent report, the Commission on Audit put the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority to task for what it calls the seemingly random and disorganized solutions in handling traffic problems. The MMDA allegedly failed because it lacked detailed plans to use the funds, despite a number of studies on how to solve the perennial traffic congestion. In 2015, a total of 1.479 billion pesos was given to the MMDA from the Traffic and Transport Management Fund for its operations and improvements, such as the upgrade of the traffic signaling system, expenses for APEC, and construction of footbridges. However, COA said the MMDA failed to provide detailed targets that would determine if the projects were indeed needed to solve traffic problems. And how close was each project to its intended outcome? Only 2 of the 8 footbridges supposedly constructed in 2015 were finished. COA reiterated the traffic congestion, which affects the economy, environment, and public health and safety, can only be addressed by an effective planning and management. However, the MMDA said a detailed plan is not feasible because of the volatile traffic situation in Metro Manila. In the absence of a detailed plan, the MMDA is guided by a regular traffic management plan.
Gagawa ka ng plano ngayon, by the time na implement mo, hindi na applicable sa prevailing situation. Dumadami kasing sasakyan. At nagkakaroon tayo ng mga continuing engineering infrastructures, tapos nagkakaroon tayo ng mga diggings sa mga roads, which would really alter traffic.
MMDA added the traffic signaling system upgrade from analog to digital is now at 68%. The agency is also asking for the guidance of the Department of Transportation, the lead agency mandated to solve the perennial traffic problems in Metro Manila.
All right, we're still joined here in the studio by our guest, Transportation Undersecretary Noel Quintanar, MMDA spokesperson Goddess Hope Oliveros Libiran, former MMDA Traffic Director Attorney Eves Gonzalez, PCCI Chairman Donald D., and advisor to the American Chamber of Commerce John Forbes. I did ask Eves a while back whether or not the traffic problem in Metro Manila has gone from bad to, I don't know, severe because of maybe some neglect, of government agencies on how to handle the problem. But somehow that COA report doesn't exactly have any flattering words for the MMDA.
Well, this is not to defend the MMDA, no. Let me just clarify some details on that COA observation.
Yeah.
So that's an audit observation, which was given to MMDA for us to give comments and answers. And we have answered COA on that, and they were satisfied with the answers. Let me just clarify one point.
Can you satisfy us too?
Okay. Depends. Okay. So one point is the traffic signalization system. So what they said was during at the end of 2015, the MMDA Traffic Engineering Center has only finished or has only accomplished 18.5% of the phase of the traffic signal digital traffic signalization system phase 3. But the thing is, the project was awarded last quarter of 2015. And the project duration is until October 2016. So during that time, the 18% was well within the acceptable range of the accomplishment of the project. Now it's already 68%. Yeah, and the other thing was the footbridges. The same thing with the traffic signalization project. In 2015, the award, the project was awarded to us late 2015 as well, and we were able to finish 2 footbridges. Right now, 6 of those 8 footbridges were already done. The other 2 were not able to materialize because there are problems with the budget. The DBM has not released the budget yet, and the second was there were some ano bang tawag doon? Nagkaroon ng disconnect yung sa LGU and sa MMDA. Meron silang mga certain issues in releasing permits for the construction of the project.
It's a local government problem again. Well, of course, Goddess has been able to answer some of the points raised in that COA study. It doesn't necessarily mean that MMDA has been dragging its feet on the problem, but there are some acceptable, siguro, accomplishments that have already been made by the MMDA. No?
Yeah, and let me just clarify that the awarding of the project does not equate to the immediate commencement of the project, because there are certain issues that you need to take into consideration, like the acquiring of local permits. Yeah.
All right. Well, do you remember Jackie Pascual, whom we were talking to right there in Baclaran on this rainy night? Well, Jackie is going to check in with us, and we'll find out how much progress Jackie is making on his epic trek back to ABS-CBN. So, Jackie, where are you right now?
Hi, Tony. It's been 30 minutes since we left Baclaran, and we're just still here at around in Ayala Avenue in Makati, and we left around 7:05, and we're still stuck here. It's already the forum is already halfway, but we're not yet halfway in the journey. From Rojas to Taft Avenue, the traffic was a bit light, but upon reaching Magallanes up to here in Makati, traffic, as expected, is already crawling. So, Tony, we don't really know if we can reach the ABS-CBN studios before the forum ends, but that's a challenge accepted, and we'll try to be there before 8 p.m. Tony?
In the meantime, the eggs of Pokemon that Jackie Pascual has captured will be hatching by then. Jackie will check in with you later. Time now to take some questions from our audience, and we'll go over to Paulo Monteiro. He's the program officer of the Makati Business Club. So, Paulo, to whom is your question addressed?
Hi, thank you, Tony. My question is addressed to Yusek Quintanar. It's actually fortunate that you're in charge of rail, because my first question is related to rail. In the last administration, there was a proposal to connect Makati, Bonifacio Global City, and MOA. And there was a second proposal by JICA to connect Bulacan, Metro Manila, and Cavite. And at first glance, it helps to connect people east to west and north to south. But as mentioned, the deterrent is the cost. So will one of these projects, both of these projects, will they still be pursued? And as a follow-up, sir, on the policy side, in the last Congress, a sustainable transportation bill was filed. I believe it was Senator Pia Cayetano. It didn't pass, but I believe it was refiled again this Congress. So will the DOTC, the MMDA also support this bill, or at least the principles embedded in this bill? Thank you.
Thanks, Paolo.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I think first of all, the project you were saying, definitely we're pursuing it. The subway connecting the business districts. I think we now, just for ease of memory, we just call it Line 5. Why? Because it comes after Line 4, Line 5, Line 6, Line 7, Line 8. And the broad answer to your question is yes, we believe that we do have to build a rail network, because the choice is always a choice of which mode you use to get from one place to the other. If the rail network is not a network, which we have a very, very small network today, people choose not to leave their cars and take the rail. Again, let's just learn from other big cities. When you have a network where you can get from your house to your school or your house to your office, you then have choice. And many people choose to leave their cars. They do own cars, but they leave it in the garage. On weekdays, they take the train and they go to office, come back. In the weekends, they take their cars. And that's why the congestion in these cities are not as difficult now. We want to build a lot of rail, and I think we just have to benchmark. If we do want to achieve a network, we have to build a significant amount of rail over the next 6 years and over the next 10 years. What are the constraints? The constraints really, as Mr. D mentioned, is financing. So in government, we do have constraints. As much as we are saying we can borrow from Japan, China, if the government builds it, then we are constrained by the budget. We are constrained by the appropriations given to us by Congress. So the other strategy is to say we can use a PPP approach and build more and amortize the payments over a longer period of time. Because there is no, it's what you call an off-budget expenditure. And it's not saying that it's for free, we're going to have to pay for it over time, but at least it allows us to build more rail quicker. Again, having said that, there are a host of requirements that we have to go through to get these things done. And the department will go through this process, and we will need the Department of Finance and Congress to support these expenditures in rail. So clearly the objective is there. The sustainability of mass transit, or of transit in general, is part of our objective. How to achieve that? Again, it's not just one particular sector. Building a rail network, you can have a rail network and dump people in the middle of nowhere and they can't get to the their next destination. So it's again the interface of rail with buses with jeepneys, jeepneys with tricycles. It's the whole network. And if we plan this well, then people will, the commuter will be given choice, and by that he can by the choice of the commuter, we're able to distribute congestion across the city rather than concentrate it on one or two lines which dominate the mass transit system.
All right. The second part of the question?
Which was, sorry?
On the sustainable transport bill filed in the last Congress, is if the principles will still be applied?
Well, like I said, the principle is, I'm not familiar with the bill, but I think the principle is we do want a network that is sustainable. Now, obviously, rail is more sustainable than cars. Why? Because you don't consume as much carbon when you run an electric train. But are we saying that can the Philippines afford all electric cars at this point in time? I don't think we can. So again, we're pushing towards more sustainability, and the more efficient your mass transport system, which is rail uses electricity, then you have the opportunity to be more sustainable. If you're talking about sustainable in the green sense of the word.
Okay. We've got another question from one of our members of the audience. Sofia Castro travels 1 to 1.5 hours from her home to school. Sofia, where is school?
Centro Escolar University, Manjola. Manila.
In Manjola.
Yes,
but it might as well be in Mindanao, no? Centro Escolar Mindanao. So what is your question, and to whom would you like to ask?
To the group po.
To the group. Okay. What's a group question? Group hug, everybody.
Regarding po sa road constructions. Kasi po, I'm a commuter po. Nag-jeep po ako from our place po to CEU.
Where is your place?
La Loma po.
Pwede bang dumalaw doon? Okay. La Loma.
Kasi po, sa road constructions po, napapansin po namin, minsan nagkakaroon po, nagkakos po siya ng traffic. And bigla po pag dadaan na lang po kami dun sa specific area, parang maliit lang po na bungkal, ganun. And parang, opo, and matagal po siyang nakabungkal lang, parang naiiwan lang po siya dun. Bakit po kaya sa tingin ninyo na naiiwan po ng ganun na lang po, parang pinapabayaan na lang po nila, and yun po nagiging major cause din po siya ng traffic?
Maybe we can ask MMDA first. Sakop niyo po ba yun, Goddess? Yung bungkal?
The question there is regarding road diggings. Now,
road diggings.
Going back to the institutional problems of the question is, where's the road diggings? Is it in a primary road or a secondary road? Because if it's primary road,
Ruta ng jeep yun.
Then we talk to MMDA. If it's secondary road, then we talk to the LGU. So again, there's no central traffic authority that can actually be the one to determine, to manage, to check, is this supplier, is this construction necessary? Is this construction causing traffic? So that's one of those
Di pa DPWH lahat yun.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Pero city government lang.
Again, if it's a matter of monitoring construction in a small road, then it's a matter of the DPWH working together with the local government unit. So it's something that we need to look at on the more macro level to try to figure out how we can solve small problems like that.
Because it's a systemic problem, no?
Correct.
Every time na lang na we see yung mga nakatiwangwang na mga diggings na ganyan, we don't know who to blame.
Correct.
And that's because, as you say, there's no central authority to actually manage it.
And also central responsibility, which is something that we would be good to have.
Okay. Yung labang sign na, Sofia, nakikita mo, this is the project of ganito ganyan, walang ganon?
Siguro po pag malapit na po kami dun sa area, nandun na po yung maliit na sign.
Hindi naman nakalagay. Nakalagay doon sa sign, slow men working. Hindi pala slow down men working.
But Tony, if I may jump in, just very quickly, I think I asked Sophia earlier whether she took the train. And because LRT2 actually comes very near CEU. But as you can see, when she said she lived in the Loma, I understood why it wasn't an option to her, because we don't have a network that stretches as far as that. True. Now, assuming she took a train, a bus ride to LRT1, and then transferred in Doroteo Jose, right? Yeah. The problem with that is the design of the transfer is quite far. So these are the things that we have to build the network out, improve the transfer among lines so that there's no penalty from the point of view of the passenger.
Sure.
Then we will move Sophia from train to jeepney. Okay. When that happens, then we will free up the roads a bit more. And that's why it's really about building the network and understanding. Now, are we going to get a train to your house? Obviously not. But if it makes sense in terms of transport, then you will have that option.
But you know, Yusek, we are talking to Sophia, who's obviously a millennial, if I may say so. But do millennials still have to take jeepneys? I mean, in our day and age, people are actually saying jeepneys have always been a source of parang national pride, a national symbol. But is it a really efficient means of transporting people? I mean, how many people go to work, or students go to work using jeepneys? And I'm going to ask John, do you think jeepneys really should be phased out already?
I basically come from a society in developed countries where even if you have a Jaguar, you take the subway.
Wow.
So
I will take your Jaguar then.
All right. So I take jeepneys usually in the provinces, but not in Manila. They should be replaced by trains.
Yeah.
What the USEC is talking about is a plan that the government has, which ultimately in a decade would allow 40% of commuting trips of students and workers and everybody else, tourists, to be by mass transit by train. And what's going on here is not unique to growing large cities in Asia. Maybe Japan could do it easily after the war because it was so damaged in Tokyo and Osaka. But Shanghai, Bangkok, other large cities, Seoul, have gone through traffic crises. So this is not unique. I sort of see a vision in Bangkok, because Bangkok has only one subway and 2 elevated. It's building more, but it has a lot of skyways. So while you're congested in local neighborhoods when you're on the ground, as soon as you get onto a skyway, you move around quickly. And I begin to see that here. I'd like to comment on an earlier question of yours, how long it takes in the past. Historically, like Route 7, which is just starting, at least they broke ground, out to San Juan del Monte, is taking 20 years before it's operational. And LRT1 South Extension, which has not started construction yet, down to Bacoor, if anybody here is from Cavite, is taking almost 20 years as well. In the last 16 years, only 4 new light rail stations up Monumento down to SM North have opened. So to do 4 new stations in 16 years is not going to deal with the crisis. And I'll conclude, since I was on the front page of a newspaper earlier this year saying the city was going to become uninhabitable, if under the leadership of Yusek Quintanar and Secretary Tugade and President Duterte, who are determined to solve these problems, this is not solved. By the number of cars that Filipinos can buy, interest rates are low, gasoline prices are low, will reach 1 million by 2021 at a 20% increase, if it's even higher, and it actually is higher now. So they're not all in Manila. Let's say half of them are. And that number of 2.5 million or increased to 3.5. So people really are going to be better off if they can leave their car at home, use it to take the kids to some school nearby, and hop on a train to Makati or Bonifacio or somewhere else.
I want to go back to the question from Paolo, because the business district, of course, is going to benefit from that subway line that will link the Makati Central Business District. What is it to?
I think it's Pasay, Makati,
Ross Boulevard, no? Yeah, how do you think that will actually help to ease the traffic problem? Yeah, I mean, you know, is a subway line something that we actually need for the Makati Central Business District?
You know, you have the subway. It's really going to help the. I mean, I'll take the subway anytime if it's there.
Yeah.
I mean,
but for office workers who live outside of Makati and they have to go to Makati.
You know, again, the context of the subway is to connect to the rest of the network. So it will connect to...
It's the beginning of a network.
Yes, it will connect to LRT1, it will connect to PNR when we upgrade it, and then it will connect to MRT3, and even subsequent lines. So I think, again, it's all about getting people from their homes to their office or to their schools in an efficient manner, and I think everyone in the panel agrees that rail is the strategic direction. Now, it's going to take time. You asked earlier...
No, because I was thinking, is above ground better than below ground?
Okay.
As a subway? You know, as a means of rail. Goddess, you were going to say?
I fully agree with Yusek Quintanar on that. I believe that the rail system, adding more rails is really an efficient solution to decongest traffic, especially in EDSA. Well, let me just give you some data. The maximum carrying capacity of EDSA is 6,000 vehicles per hour, per direction. Right now, we have 7,500 vehicles.
And Jackie is 7,000
per hour and per direction. Yes. So if that will materialize, then the people will have more options. Because the thing that we want to promote at MMDA is to shift the behavior of motorists or our citizens, shift their behavior from using their private cars to utilizing public transport.
Maybe I should rephrase my question to Mr. Dino, because I was asking whether or not, you know, it would actually help, because I think people have this idea that digging a subway line is actually easier because you don't have right of way to consider, because you're not going to use any above ground real estate. So do you think it's going to be easier for us to actually have more subways?
I think it's going to be more expensive.
Hmm.
That's where the problem will be. Again, it's all about
The cost, the financing.
Yes.
But if I may add, Tony, to that point of Mr. D, I think it's always a trade-off. There are always trade-offs. Because, yes, it is easier to build because imagine digging up Buendia Avenue, Ayala Avenue, even EDSA and C5. These are really nightmare scenarios for traffic.
The disruption, no?
But the trade-off is cost. And if we want to build a network, then we have to say, if everything goes subway, we may not be able to build the network we want to achieve. So again, this is why it takes time to design these things, because there are always trade-offs. And when we go into the deep detail of these projects, that's where you do a cost-benefit analysis. And you really have to say, I think we shouldn't be...
The time for analysis is over.
No, just simple. Let's not get married to one technical solution. Each line has a unique solution depending on where you are in the line. So some lines, and this is true in any other country, it's above ground at certain points, and it's subway. And the reason why we do that is we have to get value for money. So these are the strategies that we employ, and we take them very seriously because we're spending people's money in this case, and we have to be prudent when we use that money.
Yves, we're going to say?
So we've been talking about rails, and I think we all agree that rails is the solution to most of our traffic problems. But the problem with rails is that it takes a long time. I think what we need right now are solutions that can actually be implemented today, that can be implemented tomorrow, or within the next month. So I think during the video, I think one of the solutions was to empower individuals, right? And Goddess has mentioned that one of the biggest problems is the number of private cars on the road. I mean, 90% of EDSA is private cars. That's about 330,000 a day. What if we can use the private cars as the solution to traffic? What if we can make the private cars the solution by having a culture of ride sharing? Why not get people into more of these private cars? So instead of having 300,000 private cars on the road serving 300,000 people, we can have just 50,000 serving the same 300,000.
You know, my colleague and I, Tina Palma, were discussing that in the makeup room, and, you know, we almost smeared our makeup just thinking about it. But, you know, ride-sharing in the Philippine culture, I don't know how feasible it is, given that maybe a lot of people don't really trust, you know, sharing their ride with other people.
Actually, to the contrary, I think ride-sharing has slowly become a part of a lot of people's everyday behavior. So there's now services that allow ride-sharing, and people are embracing it. People are loving it. So why don't we focus our attention on making ride-sharing easy, such that you and me, if we decide that on my way home to Mandaluyong today, I can actually share my ride with 3 people
What's
here.
the incentive, for example? If you are
of course, it's going to be a financial incentive, such that for me, if I can share my ride with 3 people and they can chip in to the cost of the ride, then I would be okay with it. And if there's a system that can actually do a checking on the people participating in it, and there's a banning system, I think Philippines can become the ride-sharing capital of the world and actually use resources that are already on the street for us to actually solve our problem, not in 3 years, not in 5 years, but the next month.
I got to ask, John, because you said you come from a more developed economy, but is ride-sharing something that other people would still...
you'll see something on freeways called HOVs. High occupancy vehicles. And if you get in there driving your own car, you're going to get stopped and get a $300 ticket. But if you're ride-sharing...
3 or more.
3 people. 3 people or more. That's on the freeway coming into town. Yeah, I think if you have a neighbor, somebody's nearby. I mean, Uber and Lyft are doing it now, and they're doing it here. I think Grab and Uber are advertising it. But if it doesn't work if traffic is gridlocked, because you're going to wait so long for the car to move between 2 or 3 people. So you could do it in a subdivision. I know culturally maybe you can't do it, but a lot of it carpooling is what we call it in the U.S. It's popular.
So do you think maybe there are still a lot of physical obstacles even for ride sharing to get through?
Yeah, I think right now we say 90% of EDSA is private vehicles, 10% is public vehicles. We can actually make that 90% public public vehicles, when we talk about shared vehicles, such that we only have 10% with one person in the car, and actually have the 90% with 4 or more people in the car. So I think that would help congestion in general, because we would be actually moving more people in less cars.
So you have to be aware of who's going in the same direction or same locality as you are.
I think the technologies are already out there. It's no longer a matter of a technology being available, but actually it's a matter of policy. For example, nowadays it's not possible for an individual to just decide that I want to go into ride sharing. It's the steps that you actually need to overcome are quite tedious, such that you and me and everyone else here who have a car, when given the option of ride sharing, they might be turned off by the current bureaucratic steps that we have to take.
Yeah. Well, kayo, gusto niyo ba mag-share ng ride? Siyempre, kung cute lang yung katabi niyo, di ba? Tsaka bagong ligo.
On that, I think ride sharing is a solution to one of the biggest problems of the Filipinos, which is it's so hard to find a date in this country. I think if we solve that, we would have less
Alam mo, Eve, may kasabihan, single is forever. All right, we have to take a short break, but we will continue with our discussion after some reminders.
There's a way for cars and bicycles to coexist on the road. Car owners should wait until it is safe to pass a bicycle and refrain from tailgating. If you pass too closely, the drag from your car can pull a cyclist off course and cause the rider to swerve out of control. Allow cyclists extra time to go through intersections. Recognize road hazards that may be dangerous for cyclists and give cyclists the necessary space to deal with them. And most of all, be tolerant, be understanding, and be careful.
Actually have to wrap up this program in just a few minutes, but we haven't forgotten about our colleague Jackie Pascual, who has aged 50 years since the time we first spoke to him because of a time-space warp continuum. Jackie, where are you right now?
Hi, Tony. I'm not sure if you can see. There's a sea of red just outside in front of our car, and we're swimming right in this red tide. It's about 20 minutes since we reported in Ayala, and we're just still here approaching Buendia. So one of your guests mentioned that there are 7,000 plus cars in EDSA right now, and we're actually we're seeing this 7,000 or probably even more cars. So Tony, for this challenge, maybe it's a failed challenge because we haven't even reached Cubao or Ortigas, and it's already been an hour already. So Tony, it's really a hellish traffic Tuesday night here in Metro Manila. Back to you, Tony.
Did you consider getting out of the car and taking the MRT?
Yes, Tony. Actually, we're seeing the MRT, and some trains, there's less people in some trains. But of course, we should expect there will be more because this is also rush hour when workers are going home. And maybe later we'll try now to have an alternative route and not use EDSA since the show's about to end.
Yeah. You couldn't have said that better yourself. Jackie Pascual, thank you very much. Of course, we will ask our guests to give us some parting words. 6 years, maybe, not enough time for any administration to actually have transportation projects completed. But what does the Duterte administration hope to accomplish by 2022?
Well, like I said, the problem we're facing is a problem of decades of underinvestment. But the good news is there are projects in the pipeline, and I guess if we can build around 5 or 6 more lines in Manila.
In 6 years.
In 6 years. Because once, it's not like the government bureaucracy is going to build it. We're going to ask the private sector to build it. What we have to do is ensure that the contracts are fair to government and bankable for the private sector. If we can do this quickly, then they can run parallel projects. We just have to do it very quickly, and there are projects in the pipe.
Yeah.
We just have to make sure that they're properly tendered, competitively tendered, and we choose the right kind of contractors who really have the financial wherewithal.
Will there be any extrajudicial killings during the projects? Walang ganon.
No comment.
Katakot naman. Donald D.
Well, we're just very encouraged by the statements of the President and of Sec Art, and now Undersecretary Kinudar.
Yeah.
We hope that really we can see all of these tenders released, let's say, in the next 12 months, so that we can see it come to reality by the end of their term.
John?
Well, I share my colleagues' optimism, but let's not forget other cities, Cebu, Davao, Zamboanga, and particularly Baguio.
Isa-isa lang, mahina kalaban. Goddess?
Well, I just want to leave this message to our viewers right now that the secret to every government project success is the cooperation between the government and the public. So I am pleading to the public to please help the government. Help in your own little way, like something like do not add up to the number of obstructions in the streets. Do not illegally park your vehicles, so as not to to add up in the congestion of traffic. So yeah, please help the government as well. Thanks.
Okay, and Eves?
I think the best way that we can solve traffic in this country is if we make a change that makes people not want to buy cars anymore, not need to buy cars anymore. That's the biggest problem of Metro Manila, is that everyone wants to own a car. So if we can come up with solutions that make people rethink about buying a car and saying, I don't need to buy a car myself because it's easy to go around anyway. So whether it be rail, whether it be other modes of transport, I think that's where the government should guide the people, such that owning a car should no longer be a necessity, but just something that a luxury.
Some people don't want to buy cars; they want to buy scooters, which is easier to weave in and out of traffic. Well, thank you very much to our guests tonight, and also to our audience, from the students from Central Escolar University. You've heard the solutions and the government's plan to solve the transportation crisis, and the public, you, are now waiting for these plans to be put to action. Thank you again to all our guests. I'm Tony Velasquez. You can catch the replay of this ANC Special Forum, Gridlock, tonight at 11. Also on Wednesday at 3:30 in the morning. You're still out in traffic. And later that day at 1 in the afternoon. Replays will also be available over the weekend. This is an ANC live event. Thank you for watching and keeping us company.